to the 4 officers here today that I'm grateful for your service, for you sharing your stories, for your willingness to speak to the members of this committee and to the American people about the horrific things that you experienced on January 6th, truly experienced in defense of our democracy. Sergeant Gannell, we talked earlier and you mentioned the many times that you took the oath, both to become a naturalized citizen, to join the Army, to serve as an officer of the Capitol Police Force. And Officer Hodges, you mentioned as well, as a National Guardsman and as a police officer. And myself, something I can't share with you the horrific experiences that you had that day. But all of us having taken that oath, and I took it when I was 17 and joined the Navy in over 2 decades, Sergeant Gannell, when you mentioned and compared this earlier to the experiences that you had in Iraq, that in a war zone, you didn't feel like you felt that day. Can you share that with us in a little more detail, what was going through your head, your thoughts about what you had experienced defending our nation on foreign soil and then being here in the heart of our nation in our capital and being assaulted the way that you were?
It is very disappointing in terms of like when you see, when I was at the Lower West Terrace and I saw many officers fighting for their lives against people, rioters, our own citizens, turning against us, people who had the thin blue line on their chest, or another rider with a Marine hat that says veteran, or any other type of military paraphernalia or whatnot. And then they're accusing us of betraying the oath, but they the one betraying the oath. When I was in Iraq, the sense of camaraderie, it didn't matter whether you were white, black, Spanish, Middle Eastern. We all knew what we were fighting for. And my experience there was there were times that I was scared of going on convoys or doing my supply mission to local Iraqi population, because at any point we were possibly ambushed or getting shot at. We knew the risk, but here was simultaneously over and over, our own citizens, while they were attacking us, because were defending the very institution that they are claiming that they're trying to save.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know it's been difficult today as we've watched these images from the Capitol, but I did want to share one more video. But this time I would ask people, you could even close your eyes and listen without watching. Just listen to what is being said as these brave men were being overrun.
You should be dead too! Fucking you're on the wrong side of freedom! You're on the wrong side! Fuck you guys! You can't even call yourself American! You broke your fucking nose today! 1776!
22 years, I know. You're a traitor.
So Officer Fanone, I wanted to turn to you. And when you hear the rioters chanting things in this video, things like F the blue, you can't even call yourself an American, you're on the wrong side of freedom, can you share how that makes you feel?
again, I think when my response that day, and at no point that day did I ever think about the politics of that crowd. Even the things that were being said did not resonate in the midst of that chaos. But what did resonate was the fact that thousands of Americans were attacking police officers who were simply there doing their job. And that they were there to disrupt members of Congress who were doing their job. In retrospect now, thinking about those events, the things that were said, it's disgraceful that members of our government, I believe, were responsible for inciting that behavior and then continue to propagate those statements. Things like, this was 1776, or that police officers who fought risked their lives, and some who gave theirs were redcoats and traitors. To me, those individuals are, representative of the worst that America has to offer.
Thank you. And thinking about the events that happened on January 6th and thinking about what led up to that day, I was reminded of a quote that I frequently heard used from Hemingway that asks, how do these things happen? How do things like this happen? And that quote, it's very short. It just says, gradually and then suddenly. And I think that our founders understood that our republic was very fragile and it would be tested. And it was tested here on January 6th. In 20 years, I don't want to look back on this moment and think that we saw these signs coming gradually, that these were signs that we ignored, that signs that people thought were just isolated incidents or signs of things that we thought could never happen. And I don't want to say to my daughter or Sergeant Gunnell to your son or Officer Fanone to your 4 daughters, I don't want any of us to say that this happened gradually and then suddenly. And that some were just too worried about winning the next election to do something about it or too cowardly to seek the truth. So that's the task before this committee. I'm sure that we'll be attacked by cowards, by those in the arena, those only in the stands, and that we'll be attacked by people who are more concerned about their own power than about the good of this country. But my oath, your oath, all of our oaths here today to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, will be our guiding light for this investigation. And as Officer Dunn said earlier, you said we can never again allow our democracy to be put in peril. So I will say that we will persevere, we will do what is right, and our nation is truly ever grateful to you who held that line. Your actions on January 6th could very well have been what saved our democracy, and we thank you.
Gentlelady yields
Mr.
back.
Chair, I yield back.
Thank you.